Welcome to the Unexpected Detour, where in life detours are inevitable. I am your host, Frances Hammond, and today's conversation is one that holds both grief and grace, loss, resilience, pain, and purpose. My guest today is Suncera Johnson. I said your name right?
You said it right.
Okay. Her life was shaken by the unimaginable. The loss of her 26-year-old son, followed by a dual breast cancer diagnosis. Out of that season came clarity, courage, and a calling. Her book, I Have Cancer, Cancer Doesn't Have Me, Amen, was written not just to tell her story, but to guide others through their emotional, medical, spiritual realities of cancer with compassion and truth. This conversation is honest, it's sacred, and reminds us that even when life breaks us open, purpose can still rise. Sincera, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. So before we go anywhere else, I want to honor your son.
Okay.
How would you describe who he was, his spirit, his presence, and the love he carried? And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Thank you. I literally right before this, I was on the phone call with a friend, and we were talking about his youngest son, my grandson, who I spend a lot of time with, and being around him is like another version of my son, like having my son again, because they both have big hearts. They're caring, sensitive, and family meant everything to my son. He was funny. Um, he was smart. He was super smart. And he loved his family like above all else. He absolutely loved his family. One of my favorite moments with him, I was mentioning this to someone earlier, is maybe about a year before his death, he called me, like he FaceTimed me like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I love that my children are always comfortable to call me at any time, right? They know mom's gonna answer. So at like 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang and it was a FaceTime, a video call. And I said, well, and I had my bonnet on and everything. And I said, why are you calling me this time? Are you okay? He said, yes. He said, Mom, I need you to talk to this man. I said, for what? He said, because mom, he needs help. And I told him, Mom, let my mom pray for you because God listens to my mother and he answers her prayers. So I think that spoke to not just my testimony in his life, but the reality of his relationship with God and him knowing the power of prayer.
Yeah, prayer is awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. When your cancer diagnosis followed so closely after his passing, how did you find strength to keep going?
So I don't like the word strength. I prefer the word resilience because I think
Okay.
strength draws attention to the problem, right? And it speaks of a need to overcome, right? Resilience means you continue to press forward. But I will say this. Um, when I got my cancer, a year before my son was murdered, he called me one day crying like I never heard him crying before. And my grandson's mother told me, he thinks you're sick. And he said, Mom, I feel like you have cancer and you're not telling me.
Mm.
And I said, but I don't. And I said, what makes you think that? He said, because you cut your hair short. I've gone through different seasons in my life where I wear it short, I wear wigs, I do whatever. I said, I've done that before. He said, but you lost so much weight. I said, baby, I was fat. I needed to lose that weight. And I've never heard him cry like that before. I equated to the cry that I finally let out when I lost him, and he was just so certain of it. So when my diagnosis came, it actually came about 4 years later. I instantly thought of my son and what he said to me. He said, "Mom, promise me you'll take your vitamins." And for me, that was confirmation of what I needed to do. Make sure I take the cancer meds, make sure, that I take care of myself. And the irony about that, what made me resilient to continue was one that my son saw that I had cancer, but he didn't see me dying, right?
Right.
Unlike with him, 2 days. I mean, the last time I saw him, I said to my friend, I don't know why I feel like it's the last time I'm going to see my son. And it was. And then 2 days before his murder, I was in my prayer room, praying to God, like, why do I feel like I'm going to lose my son? Like, and I'm praying for hours and hours and hours. And finally, I said, okay, God, if he must go, I just want three things. I don't want him to be alone. I don't want him to suffer, and I want his body to be in full tact. And that's exactly what happened. So for me, by the time the cancer diagnosis came, I had gone through so much, I had experienced so much between the time that my son foretold it to me, that it was like, okay, so just listen, listen to God. And my friends were really surprised because I did a video chat with my girl gang, my closest friends, and said, I need to tell you something. And I could feel that they were more fearful of the cancer than I was. And I'm sure other people have experienced that as well. But for me, I knew it was early. I had friends who had had breast cancer before. Um, I had so I knew that it was caught early, that it was treatable, that that I could have surgery. I didn't know about radiation or whatever that came later, but I knew that it was treatable. So I just knew I was determined to do what I needed to do, you know, um, to deal with the diagnosis.
Let me ask you something, because I know we had this conversation before
hmm
for this interview. When you heard breast cancer, what did you really think? How did you receive the word? And we don't know what it really consists of. All these other terminologies. How did you feel when they just said, "Oh, you have breast cancer"?
Well, what happened in my case was, what had happened was, I went to have a biopsy. And when I had the biopsy, there was a man who performed it. And as I'm laying on the table, I had an ultrasound guided one. So I could see on the ultrasound. And the truth was, when I got the mammogram, I knew it was cancer because I had seen them before and my friends had shared what it looked like on the screen. So I saw that white spot. I knew what it was. And as I'm laying there with the biopsy, he says to me, "It looks like you have precancer and cancer, and you're going to need surgery, but the doctor retired." So it was a lot at one time. And then the very next thing that happened was they said, "We need to bring you in when you get the results of the biopsy." First of all, it wasn't his job to tell me that I had cancer, right? We didn't even have the biopsy results. But then he said, "We need to make a follow up appointment." And in my head, it's like, okay, there's not a surgeon here. This is cancer. What kind of cancer is it? What stage is it? All the stuff that people ask you that they don't realize is a process, right? For you to get those answers, you don't know all
Right.
those right away. And the next thing that happened was the woman said, "When can you come back? Our next available date is December 27th." And I burst into tears because that's the anniversary of my son's murder.
Oh,
So for me, there were a lot of emotions, a lot of things, but I promise you, fear was not one of them. Fear was not one of them. It was just wonder, concern, and I'm a natural problem solver, right? So it was like, I need to find out exactly what kind it is, what stage it is, so I could kind of know what to expect.
but you were aware of the different types of cancer, breast cancer?
I was. So my
Oh,
history is,
okay.
so my mother and my aunt in 2007, I lost my mother and my aunt 30 days apart. both from
Wow.
different types of breast cancer. But at that time, I was not knowledgeable enough. I thought, like a lot of people, breast cancer was a single disease, right? Breast cancer,
Mm-hmm.
period, right? But then I had a friend who I actually met through social media. And I used to be on Twitter and I used to write these Dear God prayers, start every day with Dear God. And so people would comment. And this one woman one day sent me an email and she said, "Can you pray for me? I went to the doctor and I have breast cancer. I received a breast cancer diagnosis." And her name was Vanessa Chapman. So I immediately asked for her phone number and I called her and I prayed for her. And throughout her entire journey, I was on the phone with her every day. Like every day she came home from treatment, every day. And if she had fatigue and she didn't feel like talking, I would text her. We would communicate every day. And that went on for about maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years or so. And then she was no evidence of disease, right? She NED. So she had triple negative breast cancer. And so once I learned how serious that was compared to all the other cancers, I just started, I'm a researcher. I started researching cancer. And I was one of the people that she would call, and she was I admired how knowledgeable she was about her illness. She
Right.
would say, the doctor is going to try this, and I'm in this clinical trial, and they're doing immunotherapy, and she would do this. She would just be so knowledgeable about everything. I admired that. So I would research as part of her journey as well to become knowledgeable about cancer
Right.
because all my life I've been told, most of my life I've been told I'm at high risk because my mother and my aunt had it. And so she went through a couple of bouts with cancer. We met in person, we went on vacation together a couple of times. And she became a really, really close friend. And I lost her the year after I lost my son. A year after we
Oh,
buried my
sorry to
son.
hear that.
So I learned so much through her journey that by that time I knew there were different types of cancer, right?
Right.
I knew so many different things, but I just needed to know what my type of cancer, what the kind of cancer I had, what type I was at, and what grade and what stage, I was at. And then I felt like, okay, then I can do more research, because it's a lot of information. I don't think people really realize the many different forms of cancer and how each person's care is tailored based on, first of all, your personal history, right? But then
Right.
also the different factors by your different types of cancer. I actually had two different types of cancer, right? So I had DCIS, which is stage 0, and I was excited to hear that, right? That was in my nipple though, so they had to remove it. But then
Oh,
right. And then I had invasive breast cancer of no specific type, right? Um, and it was in a different area. It was in the further part of my breast. The other thing about my diagnosis is that people really need to here's the reason mammograms are so important. I had symptoms. I had a discharge from my nipple, but it stopped. It actually stopped before I had my mammogram. It stopped before I had the mammogram. And I'm glad that I went through with the mammogram, right? Because my cancer was at the cellular level. So by the time I would have felt a lump or not, that would have meant that it would have progressed tremendously and could
correct.
have spread. And, so mine was at the cellular level. So it was caught very, very early, both of the cancers. And I'm very grateful for that.
So you had surgery,
I had a
and you had
lumpectomy. And then I had
okay,
12 days later, I got my diagnosis January 16th, or so around then. But I wanted to take some time to just take some time before I had the surgery. The doctor told me, that time it wouldn't matter. The other thing was that I live in South Carolina, but I went to New Jersey. for my treatment. I went to Memorial Sloan Kettering. I knew that's where I wanted to go. And God made provision for that to happen for me. I had friends, good friends who I consider family there, who allowed me to stay there. And so my first surgery was March 7th. And then 12 days, that was the lumpectomy. And then 12 days later, I had the repair and the breast lift. And the lumpectomy got everything out. There was no more cancer. So, I was relieved. I was happy to know that. And the one
How
thing
come you
that
got a breast lift? That's
I
what I
did get
wanted
a
to
breast
ask.
lift. Yes, I did.
But
I got a breast lift. I got a reduction, and I got a
oh, okay. You got a reduction and
and a
lift.
lift. Yes, I got a
Okay.
reduction and a lift. I was a double
Because
D before. I wanted to be a D. I wanted to
okay.
go down not for aesthetic reasons, but a couple of reasons. One, my boobs were heavy. I mean,
And your
they're
back was
heavy.
killing you,
That
wasn't it?
back problem. That's number one, right? But
Yeah.
number two, the dense breast tissue, which tends to be an issue with women of color, makes it more difficult sometimes for them to see, if there's cancer, whatever. So I did want to reduce some of that density, if any way possible. So I got that surgery 12 days after the lumpectomy.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, because when you said you got breast lift, I was like, but they cheated me.
No, I got a reduction and a lift. Yes.
But I didn't need a reduction because I had nothing. But
Well, yeah, yeah. So
well,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I was good. I tried to get a What did I try? I tried to get a mastectomy, and the doctor was like, no.
So with mine, that's what I thought. So the day I go in to meet my doctor, um, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself with one of your questions. The
No.
day I I go in to meet my doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering, they had called me because I got my results through my chart on the plane on
Right.
the flight to Florida to see my daughter. And the facility, who already didn't have a surgeon, took 3 days to call me back. But I knew I was going to MSK. So I called them, hadn't even checked to see if my insurance covered them. I was like, God, this is where I'm going. And sure enough, it covered them. And so I, I didn't go, mine wasn't a traditional route. I didn't meet with an oncologist until after my surgeries. My
Well,
first,
most people they see the oncologist first.
I don't know the order. I don't
Okay,
know the
because some
order.
people I know they said they'll go to the oncologist
They'll
and
go
they
to,
tell them everything. But at
right.
Sloan Kettering, the breast surgeon does his job, and then you
Right,
go to your medical team.
right. So the breast surgeon that I got, Dr. Lisa Allen, who's phenomenal. Dr. Robert Allen did the surgery afterwards. But Dr. Lisa Allen called me and she said, has anyone discussed your medical results with you? And I said, no. She said, I'm going to set your appointment for an hour and I'm going to review everything with you. And when I tell you I got so much information, I felt cared for. I felt like my concerns mattered. I felt like this
You
is
felt
my
special.
personalized pan. I felt so special
Yep.
because she had a piece of paper with a picture of a breast and she drew diagrams and she said, from your testing, I can see this. So if this is what I believe now. The surgery we may get in there and see something different. But from this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This and it just and she said, and when I walked into her office, because she made me feel at ease before she even went through all of this with me, because I knew she cared enough to schedule that hour with me. When I walked into her office, I said to her, I said, okay, what are we doing? I'm getting rid of these and I'm getting new boobs and I'm gonna get a tummy tuck because you're gonna use the tummy to give me the new boobs. And she started laughing and she said, I don't think I need to tell you this, but you're going to be fine from this. She said, but I also want to tell you that that disposition is going to help you along the way as
Yeah.
well.
You can't
So,
go in there with a down attitude or
I think, you know, stress exacerbates whatever is going on in
yeah.
your body, right? It's like COVID. COVID attacks whatever's the weakest part of your body, right?
Right.
So stress does the same thing. It just really sits there. You got back problems, whatever it is. And if you're dealing with a cancer diagnosis, that stress is going to impact your health.
Yeah.
So having gone through the trauma, the grief and everything I went through, and having been in therapy, still in therapy, and on anxiety and depression meds, unashamedly, it also helped me to be able to deal better with the cancer diagnosis.
No, okay. Because I know you're one strong woman. You're very resilient. I can say that.
Resilient, resilient,
Yes,
resilient.
very resilient,
Thank
and
you, thank you,
I applaud you because
thank
a
you.
lot of women don't go through breast cancer. They I don't know. I guess when I was at MSK, I just ran into people. They always look sad,
So
and
that's
I'm
what.
always smiling, and I'm like,
So
well, maybe there's something wrong with me. But I just knew I could not walk in that room with the attitude of like, oh, poor me, you
so
know.
what helped me in that regard was number one, while I did need radiation, I didn't need chemo. I always felt like there's somebody like, and I didn't need a mastectomy. And my cancer was stage 1A, zero, and then the other one was 1A.
Right.
And there were so many things that I had to be thankful for. And I had to learn to balance that because I didn't want to negate my own grief associated with having cancer, right? But I also didn't want to walk into a cancer center where everybody, that's the thing that blew my mind is when I walked into MSK and they have different facilities. It's like, wait a minute. Everybody's here for one reason and one reason only. They got a cancer diagnosis. It's not
Yeah.
like you go into a doctor's office, an emergency room, and it's a bunch of different things. Everybody there has cancer. And so when I started going to the doctor, I would have my face beat every day, makeup, you know, everything, to the nines, and I would dress and for me, it made me feel better about where I was going. And I wear
Right.
pink. Pink is my favorite color anyway. I started wearing it before the
Oh,
cancer.
oh, so you
So
like pink.
I love pink. Like I started wearing it every day before the cancer diagnosis.
And you
So
know
this is
what?
my
I
happy
can't
color.
stand
This
pink.
is my favorite, my happy color, my happy place. So I got, I felt good getting up and getting dressed
Yeah, so
every
you
day.
don't have a problem putting on the pink.
No, and
Me, I didn't like pink because my mother used to dress me in pink, and I swore
yeah,
I would
yeah, I love
never
it.
wear pink.
I love it.
So I had a tendency to like peach and orange and
Mm-hmm.
like I told you about the ribbons. So
Right,
mine was the peach
right.
and the
The peach, right,
orange.
right, right,
Yeah.
right, right. Yeah,
And it wasn't because of that woman. It was because I just like
that's your
those
color.
earthly colors. Yeah.
Right,
The
right.
pink. Mm-mm.
Yeah,
People be
yeah.
giving
I
me
love
pink stuff. I was like, okay, thank you.
it. You can ship it to me.
I sure will. Because
But
I will not do, I don't know what it is. I guess because
yeah,
when I was little, I had pink shoes, pink coat,
yeah.
pink
You were out
hat.
pink. No, that's me. That's me. All pink everything. All
Yeah, well,
pink
I
everything.
remember I was like
But it
about
makes me
2 years old. I had a pink coat. I remember that coat.
well,
Yeah.
it traumatized you where it soothes me.
It was pink. One was pink, the coat, and the other one was red. Same coat. And when I wear red, everybody's like, oh, you look so nice in red, but that's not my color.
Yeah,
I like earth tone colors.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. But I'm glad you went in there with a good attitude. And I'm sure you met a lot of friends in there and you brought a lot of encouragement to them.
So I will tell you, I always felt I'm an empath anyway, and I felt drawn to people. I remember one visit, there was a woman there. I had just finished my radiation, and I walked out, and this woman was crying so hard she could barely stand up. And her poor husband, he just looked helpless, like he wanted. And I walked up to him and I said, is it okay if I hug her? And he said, yes. And I hugged her and I held her and she cried. And I said, you are in the best place you can be right now. This is the best place for you. Take one day at a time, but this is the best space that you can be in, right now. Um, and I learned so much, throughout my cancer journey. But I knew at that moment that I felt like a simple hug. That's a simple thing that you could do for somebody that, that makes them feel cared for and seen different outside of their family, right? Because their family gives that to them all the time, right?
Some
But
of them.
well, some of them, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the thing. I'm blessed to have amazing friends, to have amazing people in my life who, you know, when I went to my surgery, I had two friends at my surgery, and the doctor was like, "You got two people with you?" I was like, "Yes." They were like, "Well, only one can come back," and and they communicated with my daughter who was out of state for my second surgery. No one could come with me, but one of my guy friends. He was there after the surgery, so when I woke up, he was there, and then he drove that. Him and his partner drove me from New York all
You
the way
had to
to
go to, yeah, I was going to ask you, you went
yeah,
to 1275, or
York
what's
Avenue
that?
or something like that.
Yes,
Right.
yes. You
Yes,
felt like a queen when you walked in there, didn't
I
you?
did. I did.
When
I
you
did.
first come in that door and
Mhm.
that guy, he meets you, I was
He
like,
greets you.
oh,
Mhm. Yes.
shoot, I
They
feel
really they
blessed.
they do a really good job
Mm-hmm.
at making sure their patients matter, um, and making sure that they feel seen and heard. I think that's
Yeah.
that's really important.
Yeah, because when I walked in there that day, I was like, okay. Yeah, the guy, he was like, let me show you upstairs to the
Right.
floor. And I was like, okay. And then when you had your own room after
Right.
surgery,
Right.
I
Right.
was like, now this is what I'm
Yes.
talking
Yes.
about.
It
Yeah.
was yes.
Yeah, MSK, they do,
I
they,
love MSK.
yeah.
Anybody who can go there, please go.
And
I
I
love
wasn't going to go there. Somebody made me go there.
Oh,
So I
wow.
think, yeah, I was going
Yeah.
someplace else. And they were like, no, you're going to MSK.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
love
how I got there. But I
yeah.
remember, just like you said, with the picture, the doctor,
Mhm,
he drew the picture
mhm.
to show me what I had. I remember I asked him what was the stage, and he said, I can't tell you. I have a team for you.
Right.
They will sit and they will talk to you. He
Mhm.
gave me an awesome team because it were women.
Well, and the thing about that, that was another thing that amazed me. I never had to make an appointment. Like my friend Vanessa would, they kind of had to coordinate different things and they needed, and she was in Missouri. But I just felt such relief that the doctor would say, you need to have a mammogram, this, blah, 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 whatever. And then it would show up in my chart. They would call me to confirm if it was okay. Like I didn't have to do anything, just say
Mm-mm.
yes to the appointments and show up.
Yes,
And that
that's
was a
it.
different experience to me. And
Until
how the
today, they still do the
doctor,
same
right,
thing.
and how the doctors communicate,
Yeah.
with each other. Like I remember my surgeon saying to me, I believe this is it. We believe this is the size. She said, if we get in there and there's more cancer, either we'll get it out, or when you go for your reconstructive surgery, I'll say to him, there was some more left in there. You need to go in there and get that. Like
Oh,
that was
okay.
mind boggling to me, literally the way that they communicate with each
Yeah,
other.
they have
And
a team.
it relieves so much. You have a care team. And that's what I would say to people. Like, I had an amazing care team.
I don't be complaining. I'm like, I am glad I went to MSK.
Yes, yes. I
And my
love
surgeon, he loved me from the day he saw my date of birth. He was like, we got the same birthday. I was like,
Oh, wow.
what?
Wow.
Yeah. And I
Wow.
remember you did the testing for your
The
genetics. They
genetic
did.
testing,
Okay.
yes. And my genetic testing. So the thing that I did not know until I got cancer was that I thought that genetic testing, when mine came back, it was negative. I thought it meant it was negative for the cancer gene. And what
Hmm.
I didn't realize is that we all carry the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. It's
Okay.
just the mutated gene. When the gene
Right.
mutates, that's when it turns into cancer. So now that makes sense why men and women can get
Yeah.
breast cancer, because we both carry the BRCA1 and the BRCA2 gene. And the thing is that it's actually prevents cancer when things go well, but when it
Yeah.
mutates, that's when it happens. And I learned a lot of stuff. through the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. Like I go to their website, I interact with them. Amazing. Like MSK, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, those two organizations helped me tremendously throughout my journey and
Yeah.
still continue to. Yeah.
But did you know about the receptors and all of those other things? And,
I didn't know about those until
until
so
you work with the breast cancer. Okay.
right, right. So until I work at the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and I continue to learn more about how their research has impacted, like the things that they've done, that they funded, that actually benefited, me during my cancer journey. They're a phenomenal organization, and I see a lot of people, they do cancer walks and all of that, and that's
Not
fine. I
me.
don't knock that, but for me, I choose to align myself, and I feel honored to have had the opportunity to partner with them on two national campaigns after deciding to become an advocate. Um, that their money goes to research. It goes where the money says it is going. It goes to research. They pay researchers. They pay some of the research for some of the research at MSK.
Yeah.
They go to the money goes to actual researchers. And part of them, I think, what makes them, for me, stand out too, is that part of them is self-funded, right? Like they have corporate sponsors, they have private donors, you know, but the fact that they're self-funded, and it was founded because of the vision of a member of the Lauder family. They want to they exist to find a cure for cancer. That's their goal, to find a cure for cancer, period. And I do
Sometimes I
believe,
think there's a cure.
well, I used to be of that mindset. I'm gonna tell you, I used to be of that mindset until I start working with the Breast Cancer Research Foundation and reading. I'll tell you why. Again, let's go to COVID, right? We can't use the same test for each of the variations of COVID, right? They changed the testing,
Right,
right?
right,
The other thing, they had to change the vaccines, right?
right.
You know how complicated breast cancer is. There are different variations. There's invasive, there are non-invasive. Some are estrogen positive, receptor. All of HER2 negative. All of that stuff. So many different variables that go into it. If breast cancer was a single disease, I strongly believe we would have a cure by now. I believe that from the bottom of my heart. But the difference is that breast cancer has so many different variables attached to it that there won't just be one cure,
No.
because you're not dealing with just one
You're
illness.
dealing with a whole
A
variation of
whole class, and I
the,
think that's the
yes.
misnomer that a lot of people make, that they just don't know about cancer. Then when they hear breast cancer, and I think that's why people are so quick to say use dog dewormer, use all this crazy stuff, or whatever it is, right? Or some people opt for natural care, and what they don't realize is that different cancers respond to different treatment.
Right.
Some respond to immunotherapy. Some respond to hormone therapy. Some respond to you just need radiation. Some need chemo and some don't need. There are so many variables. And when you add to that the individual health of a person, and any potential pre-existing health conditions, it becomes a really complicated disease. And we
Yeah.
like to say just breast cancer and think it's simple, and it really is not that simple.
Well, only thing I knew the word breast cancer and I knew stages
Okay.
until I thought I knew everything.
Mhm.
And I went in there and I was like, the doctor was like, "Hi, Francis. You have breast cancer." I said, "Yeah, I know. It's stage A." She was like, "No, it's a B,
Mhm.
2B." I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yes, they
Mhm.
removed something from your lymph node."
Mhm.
Although I'd never heard of this encapsulated lymph nodes.
Right.
So that
Right.
was something new. Where
Right.
it never opened up. It was like a little beam.
Wow.
I
Right.
was
Right.
like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh.
I did have one of my lymph nodes removed as a
Mm-hmm.
precaution. It hadn't spread or anything, but as a precaution, they do that, from time
No,
to
they
time.
took it out, but they just said it was in a little capsule and
Hmm.
not to worry. But don't do anything with this arm. I said, no problem. I said, if I wasn't afraid of tattoos, I would put no sticks, no pins in it. But I, I don't
Yeah,
like needles. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, so you had a good experience like I did at MSK.
All things considered, I had a good experience, but I'm always aware that toxic positivity exists.
Mm-hmm.
Because what'll happen a lot of times is people will say, "Ooh, at least you didn't need chemo. Oh, you had, we can say we had a good experience because we had
Right.
a good experience, right? But it is not appropriate for somebody else to say to us that we had a good experience because the truth is, cancer is not a good experience.
Mm-mm, no.
You know what I
You
mean?
know what it is? They don't see the real you when you go in your house.
And
See, they
so,
see you, you're smiling, you're happy. They never see what's really going on internally. It
so
affects you.
And that brings me to something that we discussed in our conversation before. When I first started advocating, it's about awareness. October is about awareness, and I always advocate for awareness and early detection, always at the forefront. But what I'm learning now, and that's what made me write the book, you know, I thought I had my two surgeries, I had my radiation. I'm going to go home and I'm going to be fine because it's over. And I'm just going to take this pill for 5 years and I'm good. And I couldn't be more wrong because the first thing that slapped me in the face was radiation fatigue. So while I was having radiation, I might take a nap during the day, but nothing big. When I came home, I finished radiation and I came home. And I don't know how I was able to have my grandson with me. I promise you, I don't. I'm glad I had him with me. But there was a time where I couldn't stand up for longer than 15 minutes. I couldn't be active for longer than 15 minutes before I need to lay down and take a nap. And I remember one day crying because I was tired of being tired. And what I had to do was ground myself, take out a dictionary, and look up the word fatigue and realize that fatigue is not the same as tired. With tired, you can rest and you'll feel refreshed and you'll feel better. With fatigue,
Fatigue,
no
no.
amount of health will fix it. And I had to really understand what my body was fighting. The radiation kills good cells and the bad cells, right? My body was literally in a fight for its life. And now I still have some radiation, not I mean some fatigue, not as much as post radiation, but now I'm dealing with the side effects of the medication.
Which
And
one do you
so
take? Tamoxifen?
I know I
Oh,
take anastrozole.
mm.
And
I
see
had
that
that one.
and see that's the thing, right? So this is what I'm saying to you. There's not one cure because different treatments work for different people, right? Different people's bodies can tolerate different things and your treatment is different if you're premenopausal and postmenopausal, right?
Right.
That matters. So for me, when I started the anastrozole, um, the things that I still experience to this day, like right before, like 3 minutes before I logged in, I got extremely nauseous. I'm nauseous most of the day, but I got that extreme nausea. I had to chew some gum. That gum
Oh,
seems to be the only thing that helps, right? So I deal with that on a daily basis. I deal with fatigue on a daily basis, not as much as back then, but I can't get up and, clean the house in one day like I used to. You know what I mean? Let's do
right.
this room this day and then take a rest and then get back to it the next day. Um, the brain fog is the worst. Um, I'll be mid sentence and I'll forget a word. I'll forget a train of thought. And people keep saying, well, it's your age. No, because I had that before cancer. And this is something different, completely different. I won't remember if I did something. Like I have to establish certain routines. If I put this here, it means it's done already. If I don't put this there, you know, I will forget that I'm boiling water. Like the brain, because I am typically a multitasker.
Right.
I can't multitask as much now. So it's like when I go do something, I forget about it because I'm doing something else. So the brain
I
fog,
understand.
my brain fog has really impacted me. So what I advocate now for is, and I talk about, is survivorship. And I found that survivorship impacts people who are dealing with grief, trauma, cancer, any type of illness. Because when you think about it, what happens? I just had two friends lose their mothers. One of them I text every day and say I love you. I have not spoken to her since she lost her mother, but I send her a text every day, I love you. And I sent her a text one day and said, I love you today, and I will always check on you even after the service is over. Because you go into fight or flight mode when these things happen. I never sat with my cancer diagnosis. I knew I had cancer until after, because there's a flurry of activity, as you know. I think I had like 40 doctor's appointments, because there's so many appointments and
In the
testing and
beginning, all the time.
it's all the things, right? And
Hmm.
so you're busy just dealing with it. And then once you finish treatment, the other thing that happens is when people know you had surgery, when they know you had radiation, those are things that they've heard about, and they feel like, oh, that means you're sick, right? When they see me looking like this and talking like this, they don't know that I'm suffering the side effects that I just mentioned to you.
Right.
Right. And so that's what happens in survivorship. And the same thing happens in grief. When you think about that, like I said, when someone dies, right? And then they have the funeral, and then they have the repast, and then people will bring food over for a couple of days or whatever. 2 weeks later, not saying that they forgot about your loss or of the loved ones, but they can't see physically what you are going through if they are
Right.
not close to you, right? So that's what survivorship is, and that's part of my main message now is people need support in survivorship just as much as they did while they were in that other phase. The other
Right.
phase keeps you busy,
Sure
going through the
does.
for the funeral and all of that. I remember not really having the breakdown cry like the one I heard my son have until after we did the funeral. We lost him on December 27th. I did I had to identify his body in the airport over Zoom by a picture because it was
Mm.
COVID. So, which meant I had to fly back and then go back to New Jersey for the funeral, January 7th. And then my daughter and her boys were here with me for a while. I did not break down in that guttural cry until after that, when the silence hit, when survivorship kicked in, and it was like, wait a minute,
Right.
what's what's happening. And that's when people are the most vulnerable,
Yeah.
because all the other
And
time
that
you
alone
checking
time.
on you, you have the people checking on you, and you have things happening, and that's when people are most vulnerable.
Yeah. They sure are because it's like it's over. They think you're
They
okay,
think
but
it's
they
over.
don't know because they
and
never checked.
and the last time I met with my surgeon, I mentioned that to her, and she said to me, she said, that's a trick of cancer, because it's like a mind thing. She said, because she has a patient who's a nurse. She's a
Hmm.
nurse. She works in the medical field. And she said, okay, so after I have my surgery, since I can get it out, then it's over. And that's what a lot of people think, right? They're expecting, oh, okay. I really thought the surgery was going to be the hardest part. For me, the
It
surgery
was the
was the easy
radiation, right?
part. No, I think the survivorship is,
Okay.
because radiation was a few minutes, and then I knew I was dealing with fatigue. Now, like I just had a physical the other day. All my blood work came back fine, except my cholesterol is really high, and I don't have a history of that. So that may be a side effect of the medication. The
I was
doctor
gonna
said
tell you.
stop it, and
Yeah.
which may mean I might need to change medications
Well,
and then
I've
figure out what.
changed from letrozole. I went
Mm-hmm,
to esomeprazole, and
mm-hmm.
now I'm on anastrozole. So
Right.
I've had all three.
Right. So this is why to me, survive, like you knew surgery had a date.
Yeah.
You knew the next surgery had a date. You knew radiation had a period of time, 16 treatments, right? With this survivorship and this 5 year pill thing, they say 5 years, but does that mean I got to have these side effects for 5 years? And for some people, the side effects subside. Some of them have subsided. I used to have really bad night sweats. I don't have those anymore, right? But for some people, the side effects don't go away after they stop the medication. And that's why I say for me, survivorship is the most challenging. And also, it's almost like you have an invisible disability. You have an
Right.
invisible illness because if I didn't tell people I had breast cancer and I was on
They would
medication,
never know.
they would not know.
Mm-mm.
They would not know,
No, they wouldn't know.
they would not know.
They don't know. They don't know because we're not sitting there complaining.
Right,
We're not
right,
sitting
and
there
that's the thing I
talking
tell
about it.
people too, is like, people don't want to complain about it. I think that's why support is essential. Like, I don't go to in-person support groups. I Social media, that's my thing on Threads. I'll get on Threads, Lifestyle by Suncera. That's my Instagram and my Thread. Suncera spelled Suncera is on the screen. And I interact with people daily. And guess what? I'm still learning more about breast cancer.
Yeah.
And if I have a question, I will put out there, listen, who's on an astrozole? I'm having such and such and such. And I want to hear it from the people who have experienced it. I don't want to hear from nobody whose uncle's father, daddy, brother, sister, uncle,
I
cousin
know. I
had
don't like those.
prostate
Oh, so and
cancer.
so was on it,
And
but
right,
you're not on it.
I don't want to hear that. I want to hear from people who have experienced this medication. And
Right.
inevitably, people come up with really good ideas and really good recommendations.
Well, I just started what? Maybe this year? Yeah, or last year because I was on that letrozole. Letrozole made me like cuckoo
Mm.
and very depressed. Very.
Wow. Wow.
So
Wow.
then I went and then my bones were just killing me.
So I do have, that's the other thing I didn't mention. I do have joint pain, but it's not severe and it's not persistent and constant. I was having it for a while, but didn't pay attention to it. One, because I have a high tolerance for pain. So I tend to, deal with it. But I remember being in bed one night and I couldn't sleep because my body was just aching. And it wasn't a flu ache, but it was a painful, like every joint in my body was aching. And the doctor said, take Tylenol. I actually ended up taking a leave PM because I wanted to be able to sleep. And I took it that one night and I haven't had to take it since. And I'll feel it, but it's
I
not
took
constant.
Claritin.
That's what somebody else said, Claritin.
Claritin helped me.
Yeah, yeah. And
It
again,
did
that's why
work.
I
The
say
Claritin.
this is what I'm saying. That's why there's not going to be one cure for breast cancer, right? Because
No.
everybody's body responds to different medications and different things different ways.
Yeah, so Claritin, it worked for me, but then I couldn't take the letrozole anymore. They actually gave me two medicines. I can't even say the other name, but one is for depression
Mm-hmm.
because they
So,
asked me how did I feel, and I
right,
would feel depressed.
right. So
So
I
they
am
gave you
on.
something else.
So
What did
I
they
am on
give you?
sertraline. I'm on sertraline, but not related to the cancer. It was after my son's murder. I was depressed and anxiety, post traumatic stress disorder, a bunch of things, and like I had vertigo really, really bad. I have vertigo from time to time, but I had it really, really bad. I couldn't stand up for longer than 5 minutes without feeling like I was going to pass out. And that's when I
Oh,
started taking the medication. And then in 2023, there was another incident, which I'm not discussing, that really. increased
The
my
one we
anxiety.
discussed on the phone. I know.
Right, right, right. So
Yeah.
I increased, the doctor increased my dosage, and so I feel great. I feel fine. I don't have the depression. I may get anxious, but it's nothing like, it used to be. And I know that has helped me with the cancer as well.
Did you get a social worker when you were going through your journey?
So, it's interesting. MSK has a new program that they recently started.
Yeah, I
Um,
see.
Someone did call me. They have a new program that they started, and there's a woman that calls me once a month to check in,
Really?
see how I'm feeling, see if anything. And she told me they just started the program. So it literally was about maybe 1 or 2 months ago after I finished radiation. Maybe 1 or 2 months after I finished radiation. And I do know that what they do is in the app, before your appointments, they will ask you certain questions. And depending on your answers to those questions, they will have somebody pick up the phone and call you and say, "Listen, we saw this. Do you need help? Do you need this? Do you need whatever?"
I saw that in there. It's
Hmm.
something new.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
really, really
Yeah.
something new.
Yeah.
And I said,
Yes.
I'm glad they put that there because a lot of people are going through, they don't know what to do.
Right.
They don't know who to
Right.
talk to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard. Okay, let's see what else. Okay. Wait a minute now. I was going to ask you about your book.
Oh.
What was the moment you needed to write that book? I have cancer. Cancer doesn't
Doesn't
have
have me.
me.
So the day of my surgery, I didn't bring one of the things with me. The day of my surgery, when I knew I was having surgery, I had a hoodie made, a white hoodie with pink, and I called my designer and had them design like this logo for me. I have cancer. Cancer doesn't have me, because that was my attitude. That was my disposition. I have cancer, but cancer doesn't have me. Cancer is not, I'm running this. Cancer is not running this. And so I wore that hoodie, and I said to myself, I'm only going to wear this one day. Right. And so after that, I got these magnets, refrigerator magnets made, and I need to send you some of those. And I started writing the book right away. The reason I started writing the book was because, when you go to MSK, when you go to the doctor, you have the conversation, the consultation ahead of time. Then they give you a bunch of paperwork for you to read before you go to your surgery, whatever it is, right? And I would read it over and over again, but it just didn't really
Mm-mm.
stick, right? And so I decided, most of the books that I write, I create something that I wish I had to fill a void. So I have cancer. Cancer doesn't have me. It's a guided journey from diagnosis to survivorship. So it literally starts at the beginning, and there's a place to fill in your family history, your doctor's information, your mammogram dates, your doctor's appointments, and everything. And then it explains to you, this is a mammogram. This is the different types of mammogram. This is what you can expect at this type of mammogram. It breaks down what stages of cancer are, the types of cancer there are. There's even a small section for men with breast cancer. And then there's resources in there, right? Different organizations. One of them, like Road to Recovery for the American Cancer Society, which provides transportation for people to cancer appointments. And that's not just breast cancer, that's cancer in general. I didn't
And so
qualify because,
all of them, right?
right, my cancer was too far away. Yeah, so it covers all cancers, right? So in the book, it includes
Oh.
resources, it includes charts, it includes information. And then at the end, there's the inspirational section where you journal about your feelings. And I created the book for a couple of reasons. One, it was the book I needed, right? Two, it's helpful to get this information up front. If you get it, what's the difference between a lumpectomy and a mastectomy and what you should expect? And I tell my journey. How did I feel after my lumpectomy? What helped me? I talk about getting a mastectomy pillow. Regardless of it's a lumpectomy or mastectomy, I still sleep with mine sometimes because it's so comfortable, and mine has a pillow, has a pocket that I can put my remote and my phone in, so I don't have to be looking for them.
Oh.
But I literally take you from what to expect, A to Z. Of course, everybody's journey is going to be different, but I give as much information as possible. But the other thing is that it's also a companion guide for people who support you so they can better understand what you are experiencing. I talk about the side effects, some of the things that we discussed. And you can put in there, there's space to put in what your side effects are so you won't forget when you go to the doctor. You can write the questions so you
So
won't forget.
it's a learning tool and
Mhm.
a journal,
Mhm.
in which a lot of people don't think to write down the
It's everything
questions.
built into one because I remember going to the doctor thinking, I wish I had all these papers together at one time and a
Right,
folder got to be too much, whatever, but you literally have that with you. But here's one of the most important reasons I created it as well. I did not know what type of cancer my mother and my aunt had, and I didn't know enough to find out to ask the questions. Even though when my mother had breast cancer first time, I was the person who communicated with the doctor on her behalf. I just did not know. This is a resource for people to pass on to their daughters,
right.
to pass on to their family members, so that they can understand if they're at risk or not. And if they receive a similar diagnosis, they can look at your journey and see kind of what to expect, in your family line, your family of
And
origin.
that's a good thing to leave behind in case you
Exactly.
transition. At least they'll have a medical history
Right.
of
Exactly.
what your family went to, because I know, like you said, the men get breast cancer too.
Right. And I do want to say, I'm going to bring attention to another organization. It's three organizations that I like to talk about when I'm speaking about cancer. The World Trade Center Health Organization. If you were in New York, you worked there, you lived there, and you were there in the days following 9/11, there have been literally billions of dollars, I'm not exaggerating, set aside, right, for a couple of things. The first one is the health. I just got certified. My breast cancer got certified, which means that because I worked in the area, I didn't go to work that day. I actually had a doctor's appointment in the second tower that fell. But I went to work right after. So I was exposed to the
To those
chemicals.
toxins, yeah.
Right, right, because they stayed in the air for a while. So my breast cancer got certified, which means that they will cover my expenses for my
Okay.
cancer care, and I will get a physical, an annual physical. Everything. The second part of that is that there's a financial component of that, which there's attorneys that can help you do that, but you can also do it yourself. Your doctors go through the National Provider Network. I am able, with that certification, I discussed it with her. My doctor at MSK is covered. So I don't
Okay.
have to change doctors. And I can get my testing here in South Carolina and then go see my doctors in New York, all under that same plan. And so the
Oh,
financial
okay.
component is compensation, depending a lot of factors into that. And I'm just starting that process. But I want to encourage anyone who was exposed to 9/11. Here's the other thing, and this is what made me think about it. If you have a loved one who lived or worked in the area of 9/11 and they have passed on from cancer, I forget how many illnesses. There's a lot of illnesses that are covered. Just Google the World Trade Center Health Organization. They You can collect benefits after they passed on their behalf. You can file for financial compensation if they have passed, and all you have to do is have their medical records and everything. So I wanted to make sure, not just my book, but those three organizations I wanted to mention: and Memorial Sloan Kettering, um, Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and the World Trade Center Health Organization. Those
Yeah.
are amazing
Those were
resources.
all the things I was going to ask you. So you answered it for me.
Oh, okay.
How did the Bloomingdale's Get Pink Get More campaign come about?
Oh, so that came about. Believe relationships are everything. And sharing my story. That's how it came
Okay.
about. I posted on LinkedIn one day about my cancer story after surgery. I didn't I started posting after surgery on, and I posted on LinkedIn. And there was a woman who I had befriended years ago when I lived in New York. I was part of a Black PR society, and she was a member as well. I was on the board of directors, and so we would keep in touch through social media, infrequently, but keep in touch. And I posted my story, and she said, "I look forward to sharing your story." Now, I'm thinking I'm going to call her and she wants to share my story and spread awareness about this book that I'm writing. And she says to me, "Listen, we're looking for people to do a campaign with us, And by that time I had decided I was going to be an advocate. I'm writing a book. How could I not be an advocate, right? And she said, she said the campaign that I want to. She told me she worked for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and they have on their website they have a section that says "Research is the reason," and they tell breast cancer survivors stories. So they wanted to do that. She wanted to do that, which that hasn't even been featured yet. And she said, but one of my coworkers is doing a campaign with Bloomingdale's on they annually do something, raise funds and awareness for the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And she said, would you be open to doing a photo shoot, sharing your story and doing it? So I did both photo shoots. One photo shoot I did with my grandson, and we were on a billboard not too far from where he lives. And I got selected for the Bloomingdale's campaign, and they literally just took pictures from my Instagram. And what was interesting, the day of the shoot that I showed up, the guy from Bloomingdale's comes over to me and he says, "You were my first choice." He said, "There are thousands of people submitted and you were my first choice." And I had no idea. I really thought it was just, she put in the
Right.
work for me. I didn't realize that it was a process, which made me feel even more grateful, that I got selected. So it was really being a vocal, transparent, open, and willing to share my story. And I think from the viewpoint of sharing my story to help others, it wasn't woe is me, right?
Right.
It was, this happened to me. I'm dealing with this. And I want you to know that you're not alone in this process and that there are things to help you.
Yeah. I think your son would be very proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
proud of you because you're an advocate like
Thank
I
you.
like.
Yes.
You like to talk about it, bring awareness. You're not out here flim flamming people. You're bringing awareness.
And
And
that's
and the best thing is your mouth.
well, and that's the thing. That's another reason, like, it was like, okay, God, you wanted me to wear pink. It's organic because people will say to me, I always get compliments about the pink, and people will say something to me about the pink. And then I will say, yes, I don't wear it for breast cancer awareness, but while we're talking about it, so it's an innocuous way, just for people to organically, open the door to the conversation.
Yeah, but at least you don't have on that bright shocking pink. That's the one that kills me. I'm like, especially when you see the sea of pink, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I tend to balance it out. This is so I actually like the muted pinks. I love
Mhm.
rose gold. My grandson will tell you. My grandma's favorite color is pink rose gold because I
Okay.
love the rose gold, but I tend to like the muted, the quieted
Yeah,
pinks.
see, I like that
Yeah,
color.
yeah,
But if it's
yeah,
that, I do have a nice shocking pink one that I must say
yeah.
I like because it
Yeah.
reminds me of some fishnets I used to have back in the day that was
Okay,
shocking.
yeah. All right now.
'Cause remember, they used to come in different colors.
Hmm.
Well, but anyway, I'm going to close this out and say thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, your truth, being an advocate, being a black woman who cares and who is willing enough to tell the story. And you got something you want to tell these black women out here who don't want to get these mammograms or they wait until they're what? Until they're past 40.
So what's interesting to me is that that's another thing I see on social media a lot. I'm about to go have a mammogram, and I heard it's painful and my boobs are going to be squished. And I say, it's painful is having surgery and then having to have that drainage tube, and go through all those things. You want to know what's painful? It's temporary pain that can absolutely save your life. And the earlier you go, the earlier you get detected. The first time I heard of breast cancer, I was like 7 years old. And I lived in an apartment building, and my mother's best friend lived across the hall. And I remember my mother saying, the words breast cancer. And then I remember her saying that her breast was as hard as a rock, which we know meant it was malignant, right? Don't wait. Learn from my cancer, because while I did have a nipple discharge and it stopped, I could have said, I'm not going to go, you know. I was one of those women who didn't go after COVID. It was the first time I went after COVID, because COVID came and then life happened and then my son died and then, so many things going on. But that discharge prompted me to go. Don't wait until you have a reason to go. The reason you go is because you want to save your life.
Right.
You want to save your life. And the earlier you go, the better your chances are at beating it, surviving it. And the earlier you go, the less you will have to suffer. So
Have
just
you
go
noticed that
do
a
it.
lot of young women are getting that triple negative breast cancer?
So I think younger women are getting, the rates are increasing. If you go to Breast Cancer Research Foundation, there's a lot of research about that. The rates with younger women are increasing overall. Some people want to attribute it to them getting more mammograms, but some people want to attribute it to environment or whatever. Here's the thing: it doesn't matter the reason. Go get the mammogram. There was an amazing young woman who was part of the Bloomingdale's campaign with me. And she got breast cancer at a very young age. And she knew she had it. She figured out that's what it was. And the doctors didn't want to believe her because she was so young. And then the second time, she had to advocate for herself as well. It's like, I had this before, I know what this is, but because of her age. There's an amazing woman that I communicate with on Threads. She had symptoms of breast cancer at 10 years old.
Wow.
Don't think that I mean, and younger people are getting it. And I seem to see an increase in older people as well. And I don't know if it's because they waited or whatever. None of that matters, right? It matters for the researchers who are looking for the cure. The only thing that matters is if you're a woman, go get your mammogram. I met a man recently who I never met a man who had a mammogram before. He had two mammograms, a black man. Your risk for cancer increases if any member of your family has any other cancer. Your risk doesn't increase just because somebody had breast cancer. Okay, your mom may not have had breast cancer, but your dad might have had prostate cancer. Your
Right.
risk increases. So go get the mammogram. It's a few minutes and then you can breathe, and you
Yeah.
once a year, it's time for my mammogram. I'm going to go back in January to have it done because I'm going to have it here instead of going to New Jersey. But, there's that scanxiety, right? Did it come
Yeah,
back?
that's a real thing.
That's a real thing. But guess what? I'm going to go get the test because I want to know, because I need to know. So if you're a young person and you're afraid to get it, and if you want to get it and your doctor's saying no, advocate for yourself. Make sure you communicate with your doctors your history. And here's the thing. If you don't like your doctor, change them. Change them.
Right. That's
Change
how
your
you
doctor
advocate
and
for
find someone
yourself.
who's comfortable, because you want to get to the point, like I said, I trust my care team with my life. I trust them with my life.
Are you in the survivorship program yet?
Now, I'm not in any survivorship program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because
well,
MSK, that was devastating for me.
mm,
I thought I was going to see my doctor and I don't see her anymore. And they were like, "You want to see her?" I was like, "Yeah." They were like, "But you don't need any more treatment, so why you want to see her?"
right. So for me, I'm still, I'm still on medication, but I also need to do follow-ups. Mine are primarily follow-ups.
Okay.
But because the other thing that happened with my surgery, I developed keloids.
Okay.
So I had to go back and get a steroid injection. And now I have to wait 3 or 4 months and hopefully that'll work. If not, then I got to go get another steroid injection.
Oh,
So there can be complications or whatever, but I love my care team. Listen, my radiation team, the day I rang the bell, I like I said to them and I meant it. I hope I never have to see you again, but I would love to see each of you again.
you rang the bell after radiation?
Rang the bell and my grandson was
Not
there.
me.
I rang the bell. I think there's different people don't. Some
Well,
people don't.
the
Some people
place I
do.
went, they didn't ring the bell, but I did bring them a treat back. I bought them
Uh,
something for being so
yeah, yeah,
patient, but
yeah,
they
yeah.
explained to me that they don't ring it because there's so many people with cancer there, and they
So,
don't want them to feel some kind of way, so they don't ring the bell.
and it's funny because I've seen that comment on threads and social media. People I engage with, and honestly, that thought didn't. It just didn't occur to me. I think I kind of naively took it for granted that everybody rings the bell at some point. Some
I
people
did
never
too.
get to ring the bell, right? And for me, ringing the bell, but for me, I wouldn't change it. For me, ringing the bell was a signal to my grandson because
Right,
he was so used to me coming to get him and spending time with him, and I didn't have the energy. And I would say to him, "Baby, I have to go to the doctor." And he would say, "Grandma, when are you going to come get me? When are you going to stop going to the doctor?" And I would say to him, "When I ring the bell."
oh, so
So
he was
he was
there when you
waiting
rang the
for me to
bell.
ring the bell, and I took him with me, and I got the video, and he rang the bell 3 times, and then he just laid his head across my shoulder because it's like, my grandma can stop going to the doctor. He doesn't understand. When he gets
Right,
older, he will understand. But it was significant for him, for me, for him to have that understanding. Okay, my grandma doesn't have to keep going to the doctor because he was, he's 6, and this started. He was right before he turned 5, so he was 4, and he would like lay on my chest and I would say, "Baby," like once I started the biopsy and stuff, I was like, "Baby, you can't lay there." And he was very aware. He would say, "Is it better now, Grandma? Can I lay there? Can I?" I would say no. And then once I had surgery, it's like, "Baby, I can't hug you too tight." So that was an
right,
adjustment for him. But I did my part to educate him so that when he gets older, he'll look back and he'll reflect and he'll understand what that was. So ringing the bell was for him.
right.
It's a signal for him that I don't have to go to the doctor anymore and that grandma can spend time with you and now you can hug me.
But it was only my center, that they don't do it. They bring it in downtown.
So did you had triple negative?
I had triple positive.
That's right. We talked about you had
Yeah,
triple
I had triple
positive.
positive, but I went to Westchester. And
Mm.
I remember
Wow.
I was in there like for 18 months with my treatment because I
Wow.
had chemo and then I
Mm.
had Herceptin
Oh.
alone. Then I had radiation.
Mm-hmm.
But I asked them, I said, how come I don't ring no bell? And they said, because it's different people in here, and ringing the bell is a significant that your treatment is over, and it might upset other people,
I
or
can
it
see how that
can,
can be
yeah.
traumatic for other people. I
Yeah,
can see that.
so that's why. So I said, okay, we won't ring the bell. I'm just glad it was over. That was it. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I got
That
my
makes sense.
combat wound and everything, my port.
That
I'm
makes sense.
wearing
Yeah.
it well. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're going to end this. And to
I
our
just want to say
listeners,
one thing
oh,
to
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you for creating this platform.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you for giving women of color, survivors, people who have endured trauma, a safe space to share their stories.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you
Yes. Tomorrow we will be here again
for that.
with my ladies. But to our listeners, if today's episode spoke to your heart, please share it with somebody. You can save somebody's life.
Yes.
I am Frances. I'm your host of the Unexpected Detour, where in life detours are inevitable. Until next time, may you walk with strength, compassion, and grace.